Good afternoon. My name is Wayne Coleman. I am head of archives here at the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, and I want to welcome you all to the session today, Latinos in Alabama. Recently, Alabama saw some of the more rapid growth among the Latino population when compared with other southern states. Alabama's Latino population climbed to more than 250,000 in 2022, a 3.8% increase since 2021, according to recently released population estimates from the U.S. Census Bureau. While that's still a relatively small number compared to some states such as Texas or California, that rate of growth in Alabama tied for the 8th fastest increase in the United States. Today, we will hear from members of that community who are able to define and describe life in Alabama for Latinos, and to show the many ways that community is appreciated and encouraged. We have with us today Mrs. Vanessa Holmes and Mr. Juan Mena, Senior and Junior, of the Latino News newspaper, one of the most important media organizations operating in Alabama at this time. I'm going to hand it off to Vanessa.
Thank you, Wayne. Can everybody hear me? I think we should be good, or y'all will let me know. Well, bienvenidos, hola, welcome. We're so excited to be here on behalf of Latino News. Vanessa Vargas, I'm the chief of staff. And with me, we have Juan Diego Mena, which is the CEO, and Juan Mena, which is, he's the president. Talking about our experiences being Latinos in Alabama. And as Wayne said, there's been a large growth in the Hispanic community, and we want to cover a little bit of what's happening right now, right? It's Hispanic Heritage Month, and we're going to give definitions of what Latino, Hispanic, Latinx, what are all those about? And with that being said, I will go ahead and start the presentation. And as we go along, we will be talking about, our experiences as being Latino in Alabama. So what is Hispanic Heritage Month? It actually starts September 15th to October 15th, where we honor the cultures, histories, and contributions of Hispanics and Latino Americans. Why September 15th? Well, most of the Latin America independence starts around September 15th. I will say that, and I'm sorry to break this down, I will say that several of the countries that are here in Latin America also have different Independence Day, like Colombia, where I'm from. Our independence is July 20. So what does Hispanic mean? So the definition basically is from people that are ancestors from Spanish-speaking countries like Spain, Mexico, and most Central and South American parts of the Caribbean, like Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Dominican Republic, are considered to be Hispanic. So this map that you see here, you can see that Hispanic is not just Central or Latin America. You can see different parts, like from Africa, right? We have Guinea Equatorial, or Spanish, or also Spain, that's on the upper part, that they're considered Hispanic. So let's move to the other term, Latino. Latino refers to the people who are from or have ancestors from Latin America, which includes Brazil, that speak Portuguese, and other countries in South and Central America, as well as the Caribbean. So one of the things that I want to make sure that you leave here, because people do use the terms Hispanic and Latino interchangeably, is that not all Latinos are Hispanic. For example, people from Brazil, they speak Portuguese. Not Spanish. So Latino is more of a geographic location than actually speaking the Spanish. So to the point of Hispanic versus Latino, what is the difference? So Hispanic is based on language, and Latino is based on geography. And we have this chart here to represent and give you an idea, because I said Latino and Hispanic, the terms can be used interchangeably. So the people from Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Ecuador would be considered Latino or Hispanic. But people that are Latino, that include Brazil, Guadalupe, Haiti, St. Martin, they would only be called Latinos if not Hispanic. So when you look on the other side of the chart, Hispanics include Spain, but does not include the St. Martin, Haiti, Brazil, French Guiana. So let's talk about this term called Latinx, right? Why is there an X instead? Why is it not Latino and now it's Latinx? So this term is actually fairly new for like our community, especially that first second generation, first generation. They're getting familiar with this term, and it really is used as a gender neutral or non-binary alternative to Latino or Latina. Juan, would you want to add something to?
Sure, yeah. So Latinx is also a fairly new term that has been used probably over the past decade or so. The reason that Latinx kind of came to be was a little bit to focus on part of the community as a whole versus distinguishing Latina or Latino. Now, if you go through Latin America, in Latin America, you will not actually hear the term Latinx or Latino, referencing themselves. Latinx. Latinx is a little bit more of a general term that was created to kind of describe a larger group without distinguishing, gender and being more neutral on that side. Also, it's very popular amongst more of the Gen Z, the younger Spanish PV community, and that's kind of where that word comes. And so, using the word Latino and Latina is totally fine, just the same way as if you use the word Latinx as well.
And what I would add also, if there's business people in the room, when you're saying, well, when do I use it or when do I not use it? You really do need to be aware of your audience. Latino, of course, we run the largest Spanish newspaper in the state. And that's why I always tell our clients, like, okay, well, it depends. Know your audience. So if you're trying to reach maybe that second generation that maybe they came here and only really speak Spanish and they're learning the English, you would probably refer to like Latino or Hispanic. Now, if your demographic or your target market is more on the third generation, younger, they're more hip to using Latinx. So I would always keep that in perspective if you're marketing, knowing your audience is very important. So one of the most important things that I do want to highlight is that we're very diverse in the Hispanic Latino community. We have Afro-Latinos, and I think it's always important that we're so diverse within the Latinos and Hispanic community. So people that are Latinos or people of African descent from Latin America or with Latino heritage. So many countries like Cuba, Dominican Republic, Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela, and Costa Rica, we have influences from African descendants. So, for example, Luz that's there, she's actually from Dominican Republic, had friends that also from Puerto Rico, and they identify as being Afro-Latinos. So it's important to understand that we don't all look the same. We do have Afro-Clear, we have people that are fair skinned, so you can see from the picture. So some of the famous Afro-Latinos that some of you might be aware of, like Soy Saldana, Cardi B, Bruno Mars, Rosario Dawson, Mariah Carey, they actually consider themselves Afro-Latino. Mariah Carey is Afro-Venezuelan, we have Puerto Rican and Filipino descent, Cardi B Dominican and Trinidad roots. So I always want to highlight that, we're all interconnected. Because we come from, we're all from different backgrounds. Juan, I'll let you take this one.
Sure, yeah. So next we're going to kind of jump into the different demographics that are in the state, and just some key points as well that are going to go into that. So as Wayne kind of explained at the beginning of the talk, as of 2024, approximately 5% of Alabama's population is Hispanic or Latino. That is a huge increase even as of 15 years ago. And particularly the next person that you're going to hear talk, which is our president, who grew up here in the 80s. He's going to have a little bit more of a perspective to kind of dive into that as well. Some of the major communities in the state that kind of hold the largest amount of Hispanic or Latino population is going to be Birmingham, of course, our Huntsville area, and Albertsville are probably our top three. And then once you go into Russellville and Mobile and Montgomery, finishing those off. We are seeing huge, large amount of Latinos kind of moving more to the north side of the state. It's great. And we're very excited about that. So countries of origin in the state where a lot of these members of the community come into is Mexico is the largest country of origin, of course. So the majority of the Hispanic population in the state is going to come from Mexico. But other significant groups that we don't really think about is Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Venezuela, and Colombia. Guatemala being a large one as well. And so, I think a great thing about that is that everyone's getting exposed to a lot of the different cultures and not necessarily just one. And so I think that is a great thing. Obviously, with the 5% of the population in the state of Alabama, that is going to add a huge contribution as far as economic growth goes into the state. Hispanic individuals and families play a critical role in that, in industries that would not be able to survive without the helping hand of the Latino community. So sectors such as construction, agriculture, hospitality, and businesses. It's a very cool thing in the state of Alabama. Just under 10% of small businesses are owned by Latinos. And so I think that's a very exciting data point that we can look at there. The cultural influence we have in the state, the Hispanic Alabamians enrich the state's culture in food, festivals, music, and language. And some of the notable events, which is one of the events that's coming up here in 2 weeks, is going to be Fiesta. They're on their 20-plus year of doing this event. And last year, they had over 15,000 attendees. And I do encourage everyone who is interested in kind of, dipping their toes into what Latino culture is like and getting to know a little bit more about that, to try and attend Fiesta. I think Fiesta is super rich, and it has every country that you can think of there. So any type of culture that you want to experience, which is also a big thing inside of Latinos, right? Latino is not just a culture, but there's many subcultures inside of the Hispanic community as well. And so understanding how individual those are and special each one of them is, I think is very, very cool. And Fiesta is a great opportunity to kind of dive into that and be able to experience anything from Guatemalan food, Mexican food, Puerto Rican food, and everything between there. And now we are going to listen from Juan Mena, who is my dad, and he's also the president of Latino News. He migrated here in the late 70s, early 80s, and he's going to talk a little bit of what his experience was. The next section of the talk, so everyone knows, is going to be a little bit into 3 sections about kind of growing up here and coming here in your early 20s and in the 80s and how different that was compared to now. Then we're going to hear from Vanessa and her experiences here, a very child from Colombia, and then we'll finish it off briefly talking about my experience being born here, but also being born here as a Latino. And so we're going to start with Juan Mena talking about being Latino in the 80s.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here, and now we appreciate the opportunity and all the hard work that Wayne and Mike and the staff have put together for us to make this possible for all of you. My name is Juan Alberto Mena, and was born and raised in Costa Rica, Central America. I came to Alabama the first time in 1978 with a student in Costa Rican exchange program created by Rosalind Carter when she was the first lady. And the objective of such program was to uh, unify the cultures of and to for us to become ambassadors of friendship uh, from Costa Rica, and at the same time, people from Alabama to go see Costa Rica and know all about it. It was a very successful program that still exists today. It's called Friendship Force International, and of which I'm still a member of after 45 years, 47 years now. We came here and we stayed with different families in different parts in the Birmingham area. At the time, we were like 20 people here in Alabama, Latinos that I remember in Birmingham. I went back to Costa Rica after the exchange. We were here only for 3 weeks, and it was a fascinating experience getting to know the culture and food and hospitality. The Southern hospitality was one of the things that amazed me the most, and I was very, very pleased and fell in love with Birmingham, with Alabama, but specifically with Birmingham. In 1980, I went back to Costa Rica to finish college, and in 1980, I decided to move up here to learn English for 1 year and to go to college. But when I got out of college, 2 years later, I was offered a opportunity to work for a Fortune 500 company, Hewlett Packard, and they gave me a contract for a couple of years, which they kept extending. And after 6 years of being here, I met my wife, who is also from Costa Rica, and came here to go to college to learn English for 1 year. And she fell in love, and we got married. So that's basically the story of how I got here. And it's been fantastic so far. That's how my two children, wonderful children, Juan Diego and Veronica, were born from two Costa Ricans in Alabama. At that time, as I was telling you earlier, we were all students. Most of the body of what were students and some of the medical professionals who were here doing their internships at UAB particularly. And we became one small community. We used to get together and celebrate, and so we could speak our language. And it was very rare to run across somebody who spoke Spanish. And every time we heard somebody talking Spanish in the store, we will turn around and say, "You speak Spanish? Where are you from? What is your name? Give me your phone number." And that's how the community started growing, and we got to know each other. And during the 80s also, I started working with a lady from Mexico who was here at the monastery of Mother Angelica Monastery. And she got out to work with the migrant workers in North Alabama for a program to help migrant workers with very poor conditions that they had there as living. So the three of us, Maria Marcelina Ortiz, my wife Cecilia, and I, we started collecting items to bring to those people. And we also developed the first Hispanic Catholic ministry in Birmingham, and founded La Casita, which exists today, which is an institution to help migrant workers still and immigrants in general. Later on, HICA and other programs have been created, but we also created at the same time in the early 80s the first Catholic mass ever performed in Spanish here. And I'm a musician, so I was the director of the choir, and my wife was the singer, and Maria was the singer. So it was very small, but that's how things started growing to what it is today. Very, very small. A few businesses actually that I can remember. Maybe one or two Mexican restaurants were here. The rest, there was nothing else, and nothing compares what it is today. It is a fantastic growth that the Hispanic community, or Latino community has had here in Alabama. And I'm very proud to have been one of the pioneers and to be part of it right now. And we are now the owners of Latino News, and our main objective is to disseminate information that pertains to all kinds of programs that benefits our community. And that's basically what we have accomplished so far. And I'm very, very happy to be here in Alabama. People have been great. I'm very happy to have met people of all different backgrounds. And the experience in college and growing up here, I mean, I came here when I was 20, get my adulthood life here has been fantastic. And I have no regrets, and I will do it all over again. And I'm very happy to live here. And I would like to thank you again for the opportunity to be here today, letting you know what it was like to be a Latino in the 80s here in Alabama. Pass it on to Vanessa. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. I thank you for sharing that experience with us. So I would like to, mine's more of a collage of pictures. I like to tell my story just in the way that I remember it. So I'm going to start with the left. If you're looking at the screen, I'm going to go from left to right. This picture right here, my mom's holding a bag, and I'm that little girl. I'm always making faces. The sun was always in my face. But this is the first picture that I have when I moved here when I was 5 from Colombia. Essentially, my dad was an industrial engineer and my mom was an interior designer in Colombia. During the mid-1990s, there was the housing market kind of crashed in our country during that time. And my parents took all their little savings and they came to the United States. So why Alabama? During that time, my brother was studying English as a second language. And because the United States was the land opportunity, the American dream, there's also preconceptions, right? So my brother had the opportunity to go to Gadsden, Alabama, or New York. And my parents said, you are going to school. You're not going to party. It's not a spring break kind of trip. And so that's how we ended up in Alabama. So I love to share this picture because my childhood was a little different. When we moved here, I remember when I first started school, I didn't know how to say "may I use the restroom," and I had to really be forced to learn the language, right? Because I think we acclimate to the new culture. And so during that time, once I started school, my parents had an idea of, they saw a need in the community. Back then, there weren't any nonprofits like La Cita or HICA that were doing the work of helping people navigate navigate as being an immigrant. Most of the resources came from churches. We were Catholic, so we went to our local church, which was St. James Catholic Church. And my dad's hobby, I will make a little note saying that my dad's hobby in Colombia was always writing. He loved to write. And so he saw a need to say, hey, I went and talked to the priest, my brother translated and said, do you think I could do a small column, just letting the people know what's happening, the Spanish speaking people, what's going on around them? There wasn't any kind of media that would let them know of events or news back in their own countries. And it was the priest that actually said, better yet, why don't you do a newsletter? You just have to sell ads because we can't print it, with the church money. And so that was the start of Latino News. It was actually called A Window to the Latin World, Una Ventana al Mundo Latino, which today is still a slogan for the company. So I like to share that story because my parents' determination to, survive and move forward in a new nation has really impacted me as I move forward in my adult life. They showed me accountability, responsibility, but also being a warrior of, advocating for yourself. So during my childhood, as I'm learning the language, and fast forward maybe 6 months to a year later, I became the interpreter for my family at a very young age. I remember if the water bill was high, then I would try to navigate the different verbiage of saying like, oh, the water was high, and trying to translate and navigating like two brains of English and Spanish, so that we were able to get the help that we needed. So those were some kind of my child. A lot of that also we spent in the backwoods of Alabama as my parents grew the business. Back then, there were only 35,000 Latinos. A little bit of things that were happening around it. Well, no one can really get Social Security. My parents were one of the last few that were able to. And then just getting a loan was even difficult. We couldn't get the driver's license and stuff as easily. And then it's not easy now either, but it was a lot harder. It was harder then, and now it's harder. So as I move forward, I always say that I live in the roads of Alabama, because in this picture, I'm hiding my hand behind my dress, because what I loved about going with my parents on these road trips that they call, but it was actually business trips, where that I knew my favorite stops along the newspaper route. And I would get a sucker or the Mexican pan dulce, which is the sweet bread, Mexican sweet bread, Mexican food. So I got to explore a lot of the culinary throughout the state of Alabama. And as I jump into my teenage years, I started gaining more experience with the family business. I put a picture right there. We'll move on to the next picture, because I started doing more conferences, networking events. And really in my 20s, I came to the realization that despite that I was Hispanic, but I also felt like I was American, because I was being raised in the beautiful nation of the United States. I realized that trying to find common ground between, okay, I'm Colombian, but I am also like American. How do I put that together? And I came to the realization that we're not that different. Maybe there's a language barrier, but in all these conferences and networking events and interviews, there were always topics that were always in common. And so as I grew up, I told myself, like, there's three things that I feel through my upbringing that bring people together, and it's sports and music. I think we can all relate to all those things, whether it's from football to soccer, or from Prince to Michael Jackson, Selena. I think those are things that we talk about and have a discussion, and it be very positive and fun. And but I will say that my early teenage, I was learning the business, and as I navigated more towards my middle to high school years, when I came to junior year, I realized that I was different, being an immigrant. It wasn't until my junior year that I came to this point in my life that defined me, where I was going to be able I was going to either, my legal status was going to be challenged. I was either going to become undocumented or stay legal. We won't get into the whole immigration process, because that's a whole different beast there. But I will say that my experience, my parents moved here with a student visa, then they had a work visa. And I wasn't able to be sponsored by them just because my age limit did not allow me to become a resident through them. So I had to make the decision of either dropping out of school or staying illegal. So my junior year, I had to drop out of high school and get my GED, and submit an application for a student visa. So that was one of the most challenging years. And I remember that I had my best friends at the time. I'd have to educate them. They were like, "What is this? What do you mean you might have to be deported or leave the country?" And I said, "Yeah, this is just part of me, being an immigrant. I'm being born, I'm not a citizen." And throughout that, I guess, traumatizing, but yeah, just life, I was able to educate my friends, but also find the strength within the support, with the support of my parents, of like, okay, it's going to be okay. These are just the steps that you need to do so that you're able to stay here. I remember some of the thoughts that went through my mind were, well, if I go back to my country, how will that be? I had not been back to my country since I came to the United States. And I remember that even being here, before you're getting that, like the way that I spoke was very like, "Hola, ¿cómo estás?" because I was always surrounded by the Anglo community. And it wasn't until after high school that I really got to get involved in the community because of this event in my life. And so during that time, I remember that if I went back to my country, how would I identify? How would I speak? How would I be accepted? Because I'm neither from here nor from there at this point. I'm in this weird limbo. But I was able to get my GED and get my student visa. But I made it a point moving forward that I wanted to be an advocate and get involved and educate, because during that time, people can understand, my friends, my Anglo friends could not understand what was happening. And I said, well, this is a form of education, because my parents' work, their legacy of Latino news was the resource. We had a Yellow Pages, we had a radio station that we talked about, how the immigrant community can navigate the American culture. So my parents made sure that also, moving next to the next picture, they celebrated our roots. And so they threw the first Colombian party out there in Acton Road. There was a Mexican restaurant back then, and I got to enjoy that. And it was a little after that I got to go back to my country and actually revisit my roots and learn what being Colombian was. And I had my favorite aunt still lives there, and I think because she took me throughout all the different regions and exploring the food and the culture. So it was really fun. And then fast forward in my adult life, I said earlier, because of my experience, I wanted to be more intentional, and I wanted to sit in different rooms because what I'm thankful about being a Latina is that I learned from other Latinos and in the Hispanic community. I actually today incorporate some of the things that I teach, that I was taught, like how to make my rice. I make my rice in a very Brazilian way, because my brother was married to a Brazilian for 10 years. And so I incorporate that. Now, my one thing that I would say, Colombian food is not spicy. And I had several friends that were Mexican, and so my palate developed to tolerate spicy food. And I also learned that there's different ways of saying, like esfero, you could say pluma, bolígrafo, pluma, bolígrafo, y esfero. Those are kind of the ways that it's the same object, but it can be said in different ways. And I embrace that. I embrace the differences within the disparities from our cultures that make us so colorful and diverse. So I joined different boards. As you can see, I put this picture, I know you're seeing at the exhibit, Room of Bare Hands. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's kind of what being a Latino as an immigrant, that's my story. There's so many other stories and throughout, these for other immigrants that might have not been able to, have documentation. And that looks a little different as well. So I will pass the next slide to Diego that will talk about his experience.
Great, thank you, Vanessa. So I'm going to quickly talk about just kind of what it was like being a Latino, but actually being born here. And, obviously with that being said, I think that there is a lot more in common that I have with a lot of the younger generation that is right now that was born in this. I just kind of wanted to talk that definitely didn't have some struggles that Vanessa kind of mentioned due to the fact that I was very much blessed with being born here. With that being said, my experience, when we were growing up, my sister and I were still one of probably like 10 Latinos that were at Helm High School during that time. And, it was, I would say that it was probably a very different experience to maybe what Latinos are experiencing now, but since there is a little bit more of that population there, but I kind of didn't want to talk about anything, that had to do with the bad experiences, but all the good things that kind of came with that. This country does offer some tremendous opportunities for everyone, and it's just a matter of if you can kind of harness those and take those And that's kind of the experience that I had. I was very fortunate that my parents were able to sacrifice a lot to come here, immigrants, and be able to provide a foundation that would allow my sister and myself to kind of navigate that type of, multicultural experience a little bit easier. Uh, the opportunities that come with that obviously are massive if you're bilingual, which is something that I definitely want to talk about and encourage everyone to harness that and be very proud of that. I know that at times it's extremely tough to kind of decide whether to embrace your Latino roots or not, due to certain racist things or things that could occur. But I do want to speak that regardless of those things being a thing, you should be extremely proud of being both and having both cultures. And I do think that there's major opportunities there for everyone. So, growing up in Pelham High School, I kind of lived a pretty normal life apart from having that Latino culture in me. Played sports at the school, had a diversity of friends, which was a great thing as well, and was able to really harness both cultures. So one thing that I do appreciate about my parents was that every single year they would send my sister and myself to Costa Rica in order for us to kind of be there for a full month, kind of engage in the culture, and most importantly, always remember our Spanish. And again, I'm gonna speak on how important it is to try and harness both English and Spanish, simply for career opportunities and development opportunities as well that would present you in your professional and career life. So, you might be embarrassed, and maybe I'm speaking more towards the younger people in the crowd here, but if you do feel like you're embarrassed to speak Spanish or learn Spanish because you feel like you're going to be kind of left aside, be assured that that might happen to some, but for the majority, it's going to give you a significant amount of opportunities to kind of excel in life, and also just kind of be able to have a little bit more empathy. I think that growing up in both cultures kind of allowed me to be able to understand both sides of the coin, which I think are extremely important. And I think it's something that we don't do enough of right now. We seem to take sides and we stay there. And I think that when you're able to see both sides of the coin and experience that, I think that opens your eyes and humbles you a bit, which I think is extremely important as well. So as far as opportunities go, obviously if you are looking for a business type of career or anything like that, the opportunity to have that multicultural experience is extremely important, and it opens a ton of doors. Some of the positives, I think that the United States is an incredible country, and even though it has all of its problems and everything like that, the melting pot that the U.S. is something like no other country sees, and I think that we should embrace that instead of kind of seeing it as a negative thing. I don't want to talk too much about the negative side of things, but just kind of like everything, you just kind of have to persevere past that, and kind of know where your footing is at all times, and kind of understand your worth there as well. So, growing up in Alabama, grew up through high school, went to Pelham, and then went to Auburn for college, and kind of just experienced a pretty regular life there, right? I was very fortunate to not experience too many negative things. And I just embraced the opportunity that I was given. And, if you do look at the positive side of things, there are always a lot more positive things than negative things. And I'm very fortunate to be able to be born here, and the access to immediate citizenship here in the country by just being born here is something that everyone who is blessed enough to have that should embrace tremendously, and use that to your advantage. there are a ton of opportunities compared to when my dad was here. I think that everyone that's in the state now has, opportunities that are far and beyond what they had. And I think that if you look back and you see that they made it, I think you should hold yourself accountable. And with all the tools and resources that we do have now, like HICA and Latino News and things like that, I think that it's kind of your duty to make something of yourself there. So again, just very kind of brief overview on that. And, it's not as interesting as a story as kind of like my dad or Vanessa's is. But just because I don't have some of the same struggles doesn't mean that, you shouldn't be able to share your experience. I think that we focus tremendously on negative experiences. And if your experience as a Latino has been a great experience and you don't have anything bad about it, then I think that you should speak on that, and you shouldn't be scared to speak on that as well. Thank you. So just kind of wanted to move on, and we're going to talk a little bit about what Latino News is, so everyone can kind of understand kind of what our goals are and what we try to do. So Vanessa's parents did a tremendous job of keeping this company going for 27 years. It's the largest Hispanic publication in the whole state. And that is a tremendous job. And so much respect for Vanessa and her parents for being able to do that. What Latino News is like Vanessa said, the slogan of the company is a window into the Hispanic world. All right. And what that means is we try and cover everything that is going on in the state of Alabama that has to do with the Hispanic community. Now, it's not only the Hispanic community; we also cover things that are in the American community as well, but that are transcendent and kind of can kind of blend in there as well. So every single week, we have a free weekly publication that is going to have everything inside of it, highlighting some of the best small companies. It's going to be highlighting some of the best stories. And just to know that we do cover over 14 counties across the state. And so over 3,000 newspapers get delivered to those 14 counties every single Friday with brand new content in it and showcasing some of the biggest companies and small businesses in the state. We also have a pretty large digital footprint. So our news publication is available through our website. And we also have a lot of coverage that goes through our Facebook, our TikTok, and our Instagram as well. We like to pride ourselves on like the resource part of things. We don't just want to cover entertainment or the breaking news or the catchy headlines, but we want to cover in-depth stories. And so one thing that Latino News does that we love to do is we love to go and highlight the actual businesses by actually sending our reporter, which is Luz. She's actually in the crowd now, and she does a tremendous job of being able to go to these small businesses and get a little bit more behind the scenes on their story and their operations and kind of how they go. So we can kind of give everyone that reads and looks and follows us a very good glance and glimpse into kind of what the business does, right? So the slogan being a window into the world of the Hispanic community, that's kind of what we want to do. We don't just want to showcase their business, but we want to actually tell their story of how they got here. Their struggles and all that good stuff as well. And so we really pride ourselves on being able to cover those things, and we're going to continue to do that as well. On our digital platform, on Facebook, for example, we're able to reach over 45,000 organically that come through. Our webpage gets over 15,000 visitors per month. Our TikTok is up over 7,000, and our Instagram is closer around 3,000 as well. So we have a large amount of the Hispanic population that follows us there. Out of a little over 200,000 in the total state, we're pretty close to that number there. Vanessa's parents did an incredible job of making sure that Latino News was extremely community oriented. And we spoke a little bit about this, but we definitely pride ourselves in showcasing, what what the community is doing, whether it's small or big. Fiesta is obviously a big event, and we cover that, but we also cover small events, and it could be a small event that's going on in Albertsville or Russellsville or anything like that. And we think that covering both big and small are very, very important because our community is both, and we want to make sure that we can cover that. Go to the next slide. So celebrating Hispanic and Latino culture, this is extremely diverse, and kind of like when we spoke about what Fiesta has, and if anyone is interested in getting to know a little bit more about the culture, about kind of what it means to be a Latino, and not just that, but all the subcultures that are inside of that, that's kind of why we recommend that Fiesta is a great thing, because Fiesta has incorporated all of these things that are on this slide here into kind of one event. And so, things of the Latino culture that everyone's very aware of, food festivals, traditional music such as salsa, merengue, bachata, dance performances, and art exhibitions. Latinos are very happy, very outgoing, and very personable people, and they also love a good party too. And so I think that that shows a lot about the culture and kind of expresses a little bit more of the vibrant side of things. Some of the best ways to kind of engage yourself in the Latino culture is obviously trying the foods. I think getting into the foods is one of the best things that you can do, as well as getting engaged a little bit with the music. But the biggest thing that you can do is just find someone who is a Hispanic or a Latino and kind of sit down and just talk with them, and kind of understand their perspective on things. And talking to a Costa Rican can be very different than talking to a Guatemalan. So getting those perspectives is very, very important.
And Juan, I do want to add as well that as we've kind of covered, what it is being a Latino, I want to highlight that we're constantly learning from one another. Like you just said, you and I might eat breakfast differently, right? We have arepas for breakfast, and Mexicans have tortillas. And so it's always so unique. And with that also, I want to play a video about Fiesta because it is celebrating the culture. But one of the things that they do really great is allowing the opportunity for students to further their education. After I got into, I got my GED, I was able to go into getting my bachelor's and then my master's. But there weren't opportunities for me to apply for scholarships. FAFSA was not even in the books for me. So I want to play some videos, and then I want to kind of finish up with the exhibit that you guys have, everybody's sitting in, because I think growing up for me, that was one of the things when I started in my adult life, is about learning about Dia de los Muertos, right? This organization, Bare Hands, has this event, and they celebrate, loss in a different way. And I've actually incorporated now in my life, even though in Colombia we didn't have this festival. So I'll start with Fiesta, and then we'll move on to Dia de los Muertos.
For 21 years, Fiesta Birmingham has celebrated the diverse cultures within the Hispanic community in Alabama.
Scholarships is really the reason we do Fiesta, and it was created by a group of like-minded Latinos. Fiesta has always been about creating connections, so we thought educating the community would be one of the best things we could do. Take a stroll through your experiencing the culture, art, customs. There's music going on. Food is definitely a highlight. It hits you in the face as soon as you walk through the gates. One of my favorite things to do is watch families after they've gotten their food and they find a place on the grass in one park, listen to the music, and play with their children. Our focus will be on providing a family-friendly event and also offering scholarships to Hispanic students in Alabama. In 20 years, we've given away over $110,000, and we hope to do more.
Go to fiestabham.com to purchase your tickets today.
And so if you're interested, the next event would be on the 28th of this month on Saturday at Lynn Park.
And also, if I just wanted to throw in what she spoke about at the end there, which is the most important thing that they do, which is these scholarships. We do encourage everyone who, if you're not aware of that, and you are in the crowd and you are a student or an aspiring student, to please get some more information, whether it's from Latino News or from HICA's website. You can do that in Fiesta's website as well. But it is an incredible thing that they do every year. And I think this year was 50,000 of scholarships or 25,000, but regardless, it started from like, I think $1,000 and it's grown into that. And so if you are interested in that, we do encourage everyone to try and take advantage of that. And also go to HICA to find out any more information about other scholarship opportunities and that are around, because there are a significant amount of resources that are there for younger aspiring students. And if you need help with any of those, please feel free to reach out to Latino News, go to HICA and reach out to them. You can actually go visit them at their office as well. But they have a significant amount of resources that can help you out with that. But just wanted to add that in there.
Awesome. Thank you, Juan. And then like I said, one of the things that I love about our community, being a Latina, is that I get to learn from my other fellow Latinos. And I just want to, since you are in the exhibit for Bare Hands, wanted to give a brief little overview of what Dia de los Muertos is.
We begin at the end. November 2nd, Dia de los Muertos. On the Day of the Dead in Birmingham, Alabama, our community comes together. Regardless of social status, age, or race, for a few hours, the city of Birmingham gathers together to celebrate and affirm the lives of those whom we've loved and lost. We laugh, we cry, we dance, we sing, we celebrate, we mourn, we remember, we create community. We begin at the end. We begin at the end because the end brings us all together. And in times of grief, we all need community. We begin at the end because in times of joy, we all need community. When the sun goes down and the festival becomes all light and flame and music and beauty, when the names of the dead are read aloud, when the band strikes up and the crowd parades down the streets of Birmingham, we are brought together. We are community, and we need your help in order to continue.
So I wanted to share that video, and I'll share a real personal note. I remember during that time being here, I lost my grandmother to Alzheimer's, and that was a pretty tough time because I wasn't able to go back to my country to, be a part of her burial. And Dia de los Muertos was a way for me to be able to really live her life, right? Remember her and do an altar. And a lot of people, the misconception is like, oh, we're celebrating death, but it's not. It's the life of a person that has passed away and keeping them alive, their memory alive. So I think that's something that I loved about learning from this organization, but from the actual event. So I invite you to, at the end of this, at the end of our talk, to visit the exhibit and walk around and learn more about what Bare Hands is doing in our community, bringing artists and events like this to help in a way bring that creative side, but a way of healing. And with that being said, I will finish this slide with this image right here. Hold on one second.
Thank you, Vanessa. So do we have any questions for our guests?
Well, thank you, everyone, on behalf of Latino News, and we'll welcome some preguntas or questions.
Yes, yes.
I'm the first teaching in 2000. I left Birmingham in see how it's so challenging. I said something, and she had to say Spanish, and then we have to relate that in writing. And then 2 years ago, I taught them that while we did high school in Montgomery, some Hispanics were mainstream right into the class and just got in late for a week. I would ask them, how long you been here? Come to Wiggles and they stop and go, they might say, uno mes, in just 1 month. And so I could write some words in Spanish and some in English, at least so educating them better. But if you have a teacher who does not know any Spanish, they would just be sitting in class. So I want to know when you advocate trying to get teachers who can speak some Spanish to teach Spanish students, or have translators to be also in the class with them.
Juan, do you want to come up?
Advocate for them in the school system.
Yes, absolutely. We are part of actually, we work with the Department of Education throughout Alabama, but specifically here in Jefferson County, with a program called ESL, Spanish, English as a Second Language. And that helps some of those students, or works with those students who do not speak English when they come here, because not all Latin people that come here are Spanish-speaking people. Some speak other dialects, like people from Guatemala or Honduras or other countries as well. So the ESL department is very well organized and very well equipped nowadays. It started very small, but now has grown, and it is a very good program that we're very proud to be part of, in a partnership with them to help them out, teach all our community what their options are. Did that answer the question? Yes, we do. There are also classes that some communities gave out there for free for people, like churches, different, and we advertise in our paper also where the different classes are for adults and for children as well. And we somewhat even offer childcare for the parents who do not have childcare.
Yeah, and so like I do want to add as well, just to answer your question a little bit about like the teachers, because I think your question, if I heard it, I'm having a little hard time hearing, but I believe your question was, what are the resources for the actual teachers to learn Spanish and not necessarily the kids? Is that correct?
So I was trying to see if you try to steer Hispanic students, the teachers in the main classroom, like Spanish, so who also spoke Spanish.
Yeah, totally. So we actually there is programs that are actually starting. There's a school, for example, that's going to be starting next year. It's going to be marketing. It's going to be very driven on the Hispanic community, but it's also teachers. They want to make sure that all the teachers there are actually bilingual as well, and they're actually going to actually go out and help teachers. For example, Carver High School is a big one that they're trying to get as well. And what they're trying to do is open a program up to where all these teachers will actually go and learn Spanish enough to be able to communicate with these kids. And that way, it's not just like a one-sided thing where the kid just forced to learn English or nothing else can happen, but the teacher will be able to actually speak with them and communicate with them. So those programs are launched next year. It's actually a company in Nashville that's going to be coming into the state, that's going to be launching a school in Montgomery and in Denver, I believe. Vanessa can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that that's going to be a start to kind of a bigger opportunity there that might lead to more of the public schools that, you know, Hoover and Pelham, where a majority of the Latino kids actually go to.
And I would also add one thing. It really comes down to the leadership. I can say that when I was young, as I said, we have to educate our teachers, right? Because they're teaching a diverse crowd, right? Not Hispanic, Asians, African Americans, white kids as well. And that's different. You know, when you're an immigrant, I like I said in my story, when I was around 5, 6, I was having to which is at the same time. And our brains are a little different. There's been studies of the way that you navigate and the way that you grasp, right? And learn from like a brain that's trying to do 2 things at the same time. So I would say that there are resources, schools, that there are people are helping navigate. I'd be happy to share if we could, you know, take that name or reach out to Juan there and the next. Okay. Next question.
Thank you, Vanessa. Any other questions? Miss Ebony? Did you hear that, Vanessa?
No, say that again.
Why don't you come up?
Mi pregunta fue, ¿cuál es la diferencia entre la profesora de español y la profesora de ESL? ¿O hay diferencia entre los dos?
Yeah, so there definitely is a little bit of a difference there. The ESL teacher is going to help them learn a little bit more of the basic things of actually understanding and being able to communicate certain educational things. The Spanish teacher is there to teach Spanish, and that's it, right? But she's not necessarily able to be able to communicate with that child and teach them like the core things. So a Spanish teacher is there to just teach Spanish, and the ESL teacher is there to teach all the fundamentals of schooling, and like the actual understanding behind that, and how to understand, you know, the way that certain things are said and things like that. So kind of the ESL teacher is going to help them out with all the subjects and understanding that, and just understanding, again, just how the English language actually works. Because it's very different to be able to know how to communicate in English and then also, you know, actually understand it. Same with Spanish. You can understand how to say certain phrases and things like that, but getting into like an actual conversation and then understanding that is different there. So the ESL program works a lot more closely with the student, and then they'll also find the deficiencies that the student is struggling with. So if the student is struggling in math and that's where they have the biggest issue, then that ESL teacher is equipped to be able to actually help that student out on the educational side of things versus just teaching them how to understand that in English, if that makes sense.
Any other questions?
I took the test to teach for English as a second language. We have people from Haiti, might be French, we might have from several different countries. And he is still motivated to teach English to them regardless of what country they're from. It's not just so Spanish speaking students. So most of our ESL schools are Spanish speaking students.
I see. Okay. Well, we're about right at 1:10. I want to thank our guests, Ms. Vanessa Holmes and Juan Mena, Jr. and Senior. Thank you for coming over. And thank all of you for coming to see us today.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And if there's any questions or you want to, you have any further questions or concerns, please reach out to Juan that's there, and then we'll be able to do any follow-up. I know we're out of time. It's such a great pleasure. Gracias, muchas gracias, and happy Hispanic Heritage Month.
Yes.
Gracias.
Thank you, Vanessa. Bye-bye.